Good morning, Nico, and good morning, random chatters over there. How are you doing this morning, Nico? Welcome to a fifth episode. We made it through 5 of the Specfast Club.
Doing great. It's great to be here. I am really excited, fresh off my interview with CBCS founder, president, Steve Borak on the Tales from the Flip Side podcast. I've been doing comic book strategic investment as a chronological series. The first episode was aired live last night, and we had a really good time. Steve shared with our audience that if you write support the hobby on your CBCS submission form, they'll give you a 20% discount. So I wanted to make sure and share that with people who join us today. They have populated a census for the first time in the history of the company, and it's pretty neat. It gives you notes about restoration and some of the grading decisions that were made. There's just all kinds of cool stuff going on over there. They're going to start their own registry set thing that is really popular at CGC. I think you and I have talked about how sometimes that really drives the prices of books in the market, and I'm hoping that we can see some competition. I am, despite popular opinion, a capitalist at heart, and I think that's good for the hobby. I really do. So kudos to Steve Borak and the fine folks at CBCS.
Yeah, that was, again, I loved those interviews. I think that was one of our first times we got together was you did me, and I think I was one of your first interviews. I think our numbers are through the roof over there. Strong representing. I wanted to say hi to everyone who's joining us in the morning or in the afternoon if you're over in the UK, as our friend Bob is. But we have Dan over here. We have Ultra Maximus, William. I'm sure he's dressed to the hilt as always. Andy Tomberlin, the Pat, Andrew, and I think I saw Mel up early on there earlier. Maybe he'll pop around. But I wanted to thank everybody again for joining us. This has become something worth waking up and getting dressed for on Sundays. If you notice behind me, I went out and I upgraded my bar last night because they officially announced New York City schools are done for the year. By the way, if you're a bourbon fan, by far my favorite bourbon is this Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy doesn't even need anything, just on ice, and just every 10 minutes as you're like reading books or listening to something, just sip it. The character changes. Angel Envy, sponsoring Specfast Club soon, right?
Yeah, Gary, you know that I'm not a drinker, but just because I don't have a relationship, say, with Mila Kunis doesn't mean that I don't appreciate her beauty.
Absolutely.
I appreciate what you're doing there.
Thank you. And I never mean
even though I'll never imbibe, that doesn't mean that I don't see the virtue in what you've got going on.
I'm happy to, and that's of course. And I see Mel in the chat over there, and he knows that's when we get for our next drunken chat, I'll be able to break those open. But there was some news this week. We saw a couple of things. I think we did get confirmation that Matt Kint's Black Badge was officially picked up. Matt Kint books are really being picked up left and right. Again, will they, what's going to happen? Who's going to be producing things? How are they going to have 2 people in a room together? How are they going to have craft services for all these shows? This is what I'm thinking of. The good thing is I just read a huge article. There will be no glut of, there's going to be a glut of content actually on Netflix. Netflix has so much in the pipeline and backed up. They were worried that they wouldn't have enough. They have a phenomenal back bank, including international properties. So for those who are, feeling depressed, and you can go back and look at the old classics. I'm starting to watch Hitchcock and also who else? Stanley Kubrick with my son. So we're starting to hit some of the classics.
Do you watch Westworld?
I haven't seen the new season yet because I love season 1.
Exceptional.
Taking a wholly different shift, right, in terms of how they're doing it.
It's my favorite show. It's up there for me with the classics, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, The Wire. And it's one of those shows that like you watch it for like half a dozen episodes and then all of a sudden you're like, I didn't know that's what this show was about. They do that to you the first season. They do that to you the second season, and then they do it to you again the third season. You know, you've got guys like Anthony Hopkins, Ed Harris, and speaking of Breaking Bad, I can't remember the young actor's name. We'll give him a few more decades. Aaron Paul. Does a hell of a job this season. I mean, it's just really good.
Yeah, it's been. And also, if you see my shirt, this is a great show. I recommend Devs from. Yeah. So we talked about that last time. It's in my queue. Yeah. So one of my buddies got me. We were talking about it, and I got this T-shirt came in the mail. I guess one of those T-shirt companies. But it's really good. It's sort of, if you like Ex Machina, it's Alex Garland. Short, easy, serious to digest. But we're not, I guess we're not a television show, but we're going to start expanding, doing some recommendations of other things because people need content. They need things to keep their minds busy. Hopefully, everybody, you see what's going on. People like, charging the steps of City Hall, beaches opening and then closing. Just stay safe, read comics, and watch the show. And let's talk a little bit about a couple other news items that popped up. Failsafe, believe it or not, 2 years ago we heard about this book being picked up, and now we finally just saw. I saw on Twitter the other day. The Vault guys, I think they're the Wassel brothers, Damien and Adrian Wassel. They just tweeted out that there was that this movement on this, that this is going to be going to series. So this Failsafe book, this is a nice book to be grabbing onto. We also saw, this is not the Marvel book, but I love this boom cover. Hellraiser news, right? Like everyone's favorite sort of Clive Barker property. Though Nightbreed is a very underrated and weird film. If you ever watched Nightbreed, but we're going to start seeing a lot of these properties sort of rehashed, regurgitated over and over again. I've spoken about Blumhouse Pictures as well, picking up a lot of horror stuff. Oh, Mighty Mel V, disagreeing with you, by the way. New Westworld is trash, bro. But anyway.
I mean, sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes content is a little sophisticated for people who watch it, and I would encourage Mel to take another harder look. And secretly, he revealed to me that he's watching the summaries of the season of Westworld. Perhaps if he puts down the bourbon and watches it, because that's one of those shows you can't just like watch it while you're falling asleep. It's like if you're not, and look, I love watching TV where I'll put it on, fall asleep, wake up. I don't care what episode I'm on. I'll just keep watching. But this is not one of those shows. It's one you just got to be like ding, glued to because it's so intricate and that's a beautiful thing. But
there are some shows where you're right. You can be working on books in the background. That's why I tend to have podcasts on in the background while I'm listening, just like I listen to like the Office podcast or something just to sort of keep in the background. And then it's an hour and a half has gone by and you haven't even heard what's going on. But the Westworld you can't approach like that. Also, absolutely, Andy, that was almost my independent choice today. Alien Bounty Hunter. I have a stack of 10 of those as well. That's a book to be looking for. Also, even though I didn't take this Dark Horse book, Blood Brothers, I've heard a little more movement on that, and I think Will Smith was involved in that. So,
do you think they'll do the Mama Raise a Hellraiser song for the Hellraiser?
I don't know if the rights have lapsed for that. They one
better.
Noticing, and I saw this get brought up on Key Collector. So I brought this book up over and over again, and I tell people I think I have about 20 of these, and I just saw a copy of this go for $45.
Bang.
The first Ranger Slayer. I've been banging this drum since it came out. I said grab these 8 regular copies. There's also the Hyperforce copy. Over here I have the Miguel Mercado copy up in that corner. A couple Ranger Slayer and a helmet. And there's also a second print variant. And I have somewhere buried the Natasha Bustos, the movie homage cover for 8. This is a huge character I am not a I don't even know what they call Power Ranger fans, but I am a fan of making money from Power Ranger fans. So this number 8, these copies, hopefully if you have them, sell them now. These books are selling right now. So this is I just like to alert to books that if you listened and bought books early on, you're grabbing them out. Oh, Pat, upcoming Lovecraft Country. That is from Jordan Peele, I believe, right? And that looks like they're going to do a really interesting version of that. And I love anything H.P. Lovecraft. I'm totally down.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There's H.P. Lovecraft pulps that are reasonable, just like there are Schomburg pulps. Like you pay $1,000 for a Schomburg cover, you know what I mean? Like just any random, it's brutal. But you can get the Schomburg pulps for nothing. Same deal with the H.P. Lovecraft pulps. They're cheap as far as like pulps go. I don't know that it's going to see a ton of attention as a result of the HBO stuff, but I think if people knew about it, it would. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if it was on one of your interview shows or maybe Flipside or somewhere, but I saw somebody actually, I didn't know a lot about the pulps, and someone went into a really extensive talk on pulp books and books to look out for and how sort of to grab value. And those are the kind of books, you don't find a lot of comics necessarily at antique store and roadside stores.
Now
You'll
we're
find
talking.
a lot of pulp books and magazines at these. That's what you're looking for in those places. Go to the back corner where they have their little all their dime store paperbacks, and then go through those boxes and you'll find some cool pulp books in there as well. And that's just beautiful to have. That's a piece of history. But we could go on and on forever, Nico. But so we're gonna try something new today. We're gonna I love a bad pun and anything around spec, as you can see from my Comic DeSPECtive title. And so we're going to start this thing called the TriSPECta, and we're going to focus on 3 books. Sort of, if you're a horse racing fan, like To Win, To Place, To Show. That's first, second, third. We're going to highlight 3 books that we think right now, for one reason or another, may not be on the forefront of people's minds right now. They may have been something like the book I just showed before, Failsafe, that got optioned 2 years ago and is sitting around in your boxes. But these are books that you can make a move on right now. There are a lot of books that are selling. There is not a drop in the market from what I'm starting to see on eBay, and other people are starting to notice it. So we have to start finding those bargains again. And that's one of the things that Nico and I thought we'd do today. We'd jump through some of the major companies and then share some small press. And then if this works, we'll make it a regular part of every time we'll do like a 3-part series. And what it'll look like is, let's see, do I have my, I like to use.
And for the record, Gary's description today on the show is not exactly how I heard that. So forgive me if I don't do a good job. We'll just let him go full screen and we'll see what I can grab from this room.
It doesn't matter at all, because if you know anything about Nico and I, we get on the phone, we just talk about, say, oh, what are we talking about? This, okay. We don't share books at all, but we end up. So Nico, this is essentially what I meant. So let's say we were going to say right now my 3 favorite Dark Side covers, right? So I'm going to show. So I'm a big fan of Dark Side. I think this is a character that's underdeveloped, but. So this is just, this is sort of the primer. So this is a great Alan Davis cover, Dark Side Genesis 3, great series if you never read Genesis. Really did a lot in terms of developing Dark Side and some of the new gods. Was written by John Byrne. This cover, of course, many of you know, this was the regular cover for the Mr. Miracle series, all black cover. Many people have called it the Thing cover, sort of a great reverse negative. Mitch Gerards, who worked with Tom King. And then this Legion of Superheroes, just because I do not have that Adventure Comics, that beautiful, I think it's a Bermejo. Bermejo did that Adventure Comics that goes for an amazing amount of money. It looks sort of like this, with the Dark Side being sort of worshipped by the Legion. But so these are my 3 sort of favorite like Dark Side covers that I own. And I thought, like, this is what we can sort of do. Show you. Thank you, Andy. It's all about the name. Once you have the name in, yes, Dan. Yes, shout it. TriSPECta. Shout it in your living room or your bedroom, unless your family's still sleeping like mine. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some books. I'm going to get Nico back on. Nico, where would you like to start? I'm going to let you start, Nico.
All right. So we'll see how I do.
Yeah.
We talked about your Dirty Pair book that you scored that I was jealous of because I don't have it. And I wanted to talk about, what I think are just some like good girl art books that are underappreciated. So this was the book not on my list that I was talking about, which is The Other Homage, right? Remember this one from Danger Girl? We couldn't remember who did that? Was that Turner? No, it's Campbell. Dirt Cheap. Honest to God, I like it.
Seen that. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that. And you know what's funny? I forgot. I was on.
I think I just spec the DeSPECtive. Holy shit!
They own. I just saw. I think
Mark the date.
I think IDW owns all the rights to the Danger Girl books because they have all their trades. It's really weird. But that's it. Yeah, I always love. There's a lot of great little variants for Danger Girl and Gen 13 also.
All right, I like the other two from the pair because even if people grab the Dirty Pair cover that you're talking about, they never grab these two.
Is that Bruce Timm on the one side? Who's that?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's Bruce Timm, and I don't know who the hell did this
up again. That looks. I would say looks like the guy who did Humberto Ramos. I don't know.
Yeah, Humberto Ramos. There we go. Good job. At least you know what the hell's going on. All right. I think this is one that I still find in back issue bins because people don't know what it is. It's an Elephant Man book, right? Wow. And it's easy money. You can't buy them on eBay for, in high grade less than like $80. I mean, they're just brutal. But you can absolutely snag them in back issue bins and at dollar sales because people don't know what the hell it is. They gave up on Elephant Man a long time ago. J. Scott Campbell, goodness. That one's gorgeous. I might send that one into CGC. We'll see. The other one that I really love is this Johnny Quest cover. Again, I find them in dollar bins. So there's your buddy George's Good Girl art that I think you can snag. Wouldn't necessarily be trying to grab them on the Bay, but I think they are undervalued to the extent that they're underappreciated, and you can find them in long boxes and short boxes. But we'll talk about some different stuff later. Okay.
Yeah, very close. So you know what? You're gonna make me zig when we zig when we zag. We always joke whatever's going on. Just like when Justice League Dark got announced, we said, oh, let's do Marvel Supernatural. So Nico's gonna go on his own trail tonight. I am going to show you. I'm going to show you a few books that I think. I'm going to start with.
Yeah, that was some of George's Independence. I've got. But we can go. I got a Marvel thing.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's do. I'm going to do three quick Marvel titles that I think are books that people should be keeping an eye on right now. I think I brought this up briefly during the X-Men run, but I didn't really go super into it. But this X-Force 116, right? So this is.
Hold on, you got to go full screen. I can't see.
Yeah, I'm going to go. There we go. So the X-Force, this 116, this is known for the first X-Statics. This was supposed to be actually coming out again when right before we had the COVID crisis. We heard a little more about X-Statics. Now it's been bumped into I think almost 2021. But I've noticed that these books have started to pick up a little bit. You can grab them for cover price. I used to grab these for cover price all the time out of long boxes. And now I see them, starting to pick up maybe in the $12, $14 range. They're going to pick up more interest over there. This is sort of Mike Allred and Peter Milligan's really bizarre take on the mutants and celebrity and reality TV. It was a great series. It was sort of like it also had like everybody sort of died in the first issue except for a couple of the main characters. So I think that X-Force 116, that's my sort of my show book, that sort of third place. Second place, I would definitely be buying What Ifs right now. I just saw a What If 1 9.8 go for a nice chunk of change, but you can still grab these What If books out of long box spins. I have a full run of What If. I picked it up over the years and I've tried to upgrade my copies. Remember, this is going to be one of those animated series. So we may see production come forth a lot sooner on an animated series than we do on some of the live action Disney Plus stuff that's going to come out. This is the first one. Again, beautiful copy. There are beautiful copies out there. Also, don't forget some of those alternate world Marvel stuff because it looks like they're doing a lot in terms of that as well. As I've shown many times before, the Exiles 3, the Captain Carter cover, We Can Do It cover. So you want to grab some of that alternate reality stuff, but especially What If, Spider-Man joined Fantastic Four. You can find these books, first issue of What If, which is, for me, I loved What If growing up. You can find this still in like the 25 and under range for a really nice near mint copy. So
Gary, I couldn't agree more. I think that's just smart. Love the What Ifs. The only reason I didn't pull them is I was hoping maybe you and I could sit down and do a whole show about What If. I 100% agree with your analysis that it just makes sense for animated series to get pushed. It's something that you can do in spite of any amount of like quarantining, social distancing, whatever. And the same analysis, I think, applies to the Devil Dinosaur animated series.
Yeah, and that's what it's an animated series. Like, even, you know, I keep going up in my head again and again, and I didn't show it as one of my properties because I spoke about it previously, but Invincible, for me, like that Invincible property, because again, they were looking animated, maybe they won't go animated. And finally, my book for the win, and I spoke about this a little in the past, and I think this is an underrated character. This 253, 254, Union Jack. This is the first appearance of our modern Union Jack. We're going to see him coming again in that Empire, the Union series that's coming out. Union Jack is a really nice, underrated character. He's going to be written by Paul Grist. Those who don't know Paul Grist, he did a bunch of really outstanding British series, including his own take on Union Jack. But now he's finally getting a chance to write him. We'll see this character get his proper due. I think he's someone who should be up there. It's funny, Captain Britain, Union Jack. I don't know what it is about these UK characters, and I know we have Mr. Taylor in the room over here. But I don't think they get enough respect and enough love on this side of the pond. So that's a book I would look for as well. You can find some of those Captain America copies like just in a regular and regular bins. Like, they're not well known. That's not one of those things that people are seeking out immediately. So those were issues again.
Strong.
253 and 254. So just three quick Marvel things just to sort of highlight and target. And that's what I picture us doing, Nico, in the future, saying like, okay, what are your three top kids properties would be books right for development? So that's where I hope we start moving with that.
All right.
What if Rookie had the hammer? Sienkiewicz cover, banging. You got it, Mel.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try to do Deadpool then.
Okay, great. And while you do that, I'm gonna grab a little stack.
Because Deadpool's sort of Marvel.
That's cool.
I think you want to snag the Deadpool homages, right? While Deadpool's down and it looks like production is delayed. I think that those are the books that people are going to look for, other than the obvious New Mutants 98. There's a gajillion copies. Everyone's been slabbed. Everybody knows what the price tag is. The Siege 3 variant and the Deadpool Wolverine variant are sky high. Good luck trying to pick them up as anything other than an investment piece. So there's a ton of different homages that he's done over the years. I like them. I also think Merc with a Mouth is the preeminent series, right? Like, that's the book that sort of made Deadpool for modern Deadpool collectors. And then the one that I really just love is this one, Deadpool 65, the Bunny Rabbit book. And it's one that I've never paid top dollar for, but I've always been able to score out of back issue bins, for next to nothing. And, I think they're still out there. Also, I think you can catch people snoozing on eBay with this kind of stuff, particularly if you're willing to kind of be patient and stick it in, your saved searches.
Yeah, and I think I think Deadpool is one of those characters who, again and again, has a sort of rabid style fan base, just like we saw the Punisher used to have back in the day, right? I like this, Nico. I like that we're going to show, because this way people will get double what they thought they were going to get here today, because you're going to show your thing. So essentially, guys, what I said, Nico, and I said, hey,
I clearly misunderstood what you were talking about, because you made the dark side thing to me. You're like, well, we're still three dark side books.
That's a bad example. Sorry, Nico.
Yeah, well, it's all right. This is we're what you would call a non-judgmental, experimental podcast. Just having a fun time. I was like, hey, Gary, what time are we going on this morning, right? Like, I didn't know what time he was going to check in. And he's like, we don't punch a clock here. And I was like, all right, point well taken.
I'm not a strict taskmaster, only in my own household runnings. I'm over here. So so I spoke about the three Marvel characters. So let me pop in and show. These are three lower tier, maybe lower rated DC characters that I think for one reason or another have some interest. This is a book I love. This Teen Titans Go. And this is The Return of Red X. For anyone who watches Teen Titans Go, this Red X character has quite a nice reputation as well. Right on the cover over here, I think they like the design. I think Red X turns out to be Robin. I've seen a lot of artists and creators talk over the years of bringing this Red X character. So this is just a fun book, and also a tough book to find. A lot of these Teen Titans Go books are nice, great covers, and you'll find these beat up all the time. Everyone is always focused on Jessica Cruz, right? I'm always speaking about, and I'm going to go into. I have a little Green Lantern theme going today, as you'll find out later. So it's Justice League 31, the Power Ring, right? The new Power Ring, and we spoke about the arm appearance as well. But I think an interesting grab is always that Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #1. That's Arisa's first appearance. She is not on the and again, I don't think that was her on the cover, miscolored. For those who don't know Arisa has like gold skin, and like she was a love interest of Hal Jordan. So this Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #1, and finally an underrated character for sure in these Flash 92s. Impulse. We've seen Impulse has become sort of the center and the heart of Bendis's well-meaning but not really light me on fire Young Justice. But I think this, with what they've done with Wally West, sort of shifted him off and sort of made him this combination of Mobius, Dr. Manhattan, and this sort of sage figure. I think Impulse is a character. Bart Allen is someone who's rife for blowing up, and Flash 92. Always a book that I'll grab when I see it at a bargain rate. And again, this is one of those great covers. The late great Mike Wieringo, right, who worked with Mark Waid on this. All right, Nico.
All right. It is a lightning round. I love it. Okay, so these are my random indie. I don't know if you call them independent. That might be too mainstream of a word, right? So first, in bronze, the first appearance of Jason Voorhees in comics. Satan 6, #4. Nobody knows that's his first appearance in comics, which I love. You can find these suckers for $1 all day long, and they haven't caught on in a community that just like has a hard on for horror comics. Nobody knows. All right, the next one, I don't even know who the hell Conquest Publishing is, but this Betty Page Bose cover is winner chicken dinner. You can find it for $2 or $200 depending on who's selling it. It's crazy, and it's one that you like screenshot it, commit it to memory, okay, and snag them because it's just a win if you can find them. They're super tough and high grade. I mean, you're talking about super small publisher, black, whatever, painted. There's Betty, looking all delicious down on the bottom. Gotta love it. And then the one that I think people have forgot about, gave up on because of all the controversy that surrounded it, that is just a smart long-term play, is The Good Morty. Don't forget about it. The price tags on eBay are through the roof. It's a book I think you're going to have to grab at a show, or you're going to have to negotiate out of the cold, dead hands of a probably resentful seller on eBay. A lot of people paid huge money only to find out that they didn't have the right version. There's a lot that's been written about it. What I would encourage you to do is just go ahead and Google it and read some of the really good articles that have been done that explain explain sort of the history around that book. But I think in the long run, that's a one to really think about. That's a rabid fan base, and for a group of fans that are willing to pay top dollar for like what's the Mexican pack of what do they get? What the hell is it? It's like taco sauce at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Hot sauce, like
yeah, but I forget what Rick and Morty sauce they had. Like if they're willing to pay for that, please. So the question was like, how many staples? Just the one.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I heard about I know the counterfeiting was a big concern with that, and I remember when that came out, and people were that brought out a lot of serious sort of debate, right? In terms of that.
Yeah. So what I would do is I'd just kind of read about it, make your own decision. But my point is take an opportunity to snag that book at a time like this when people are like, hell, I need a little bit of money, when there's no eyes on it. Because I think, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, somebody who's willing to pay, like, I'll trade you my car for some Szechuan sauce, they're going to be willing to spend big bucks on that one.
Yeah, the Szechuan sauce. Thank you, HPC. All right, so I'll jump in with a couple independents I have too. These are, again, sort of books that I think may not super be on the radar. I showed these once before, and these are really interesting. So TKO, those who don't know, TKO has put out these sets, and they decided to do this in a couple of ways. They were gonna have boxes come out that sort of have issue 1 through 6, all contained within this sort of sealed box. They were going to give you a trade version of it, or they were going to allow you to get a digital sort of download on this. So I've read these all kept them. I don't think anyone's what these print runs look like. I know I was one of the first ones to sort of order these when they came out, and so you had the first run was the Fearsome Dr. Fang, which was sort of dealt with almost like Ogun, if you know, Wolverine-esque sort of an Asian motif per se. We had the amazing sort of espionage war book, Sarah, by Garth Ennis and Steve Epting. So you're looking, these aren't sort of run-of-the-mill creators. This was the one I think that was most well received, the one that people really started to look out for. And again, all 6 issues are contained within. And again, this is sort of, we don't know how many issues are. We don't know if they can print to sort of, but I've been watching on eBay, and I've seen some of the boxes, which originally went for like $20, I think, or 24, going, starting to rise up maybe about 50% more of that. Goodnight Paradise was one. And then finally, Deadly Sins. And if you don't know, this is actually the creator, Zhe Chun, and the phenomenal Antiam Trankov, who's done some amazing covers. So this is from TKO Publishing. Even if these books don't necessarily rise up, I think I like what TKO is doing. And again, you can see on the back, they sort of give you a preview of the art on the back as well. So those are the first 4 offerings. They've had books with Jeff Lemire come out as well. A few others that they're going to start rolling out further down the line. The book that I'm going to put is a mid-range book, because this book already has commands some high prices, but whether you like it or not, and what you think about sort of Vault Publishing, the Heathen book, this Heathen book is going to be a movie, and it's going to be probably a big budget Vault's first sort of foray into really into a film, not TV necessarily, because we've seen Vagrant Queen and a few other things pop out. The book itself is starting back up again, so it's going to pick up interest. This is a Comixology variant, pretty tough to find. The regular covers, I'm sure you've seen already. This is a regular issue 1, and then it just had beautiful. This was of course, Jem Bartel cover, and then you had some other gorgeous like second print covers and third print covers.
You're gonna have me buying those books because I don't have any, and I've been butthurt about it, forgave myself, and I'm back to being resentful that I don't have any.
Yeah, that and let me tell you, it's sort of like it's a lesbian Viking warrior. So so you've had so it's been sort of the book that's been thrown on and burnt by a lot of the comic skaters, and like, oh, this is what's wrong with these books. But
sounds wonderful.
Yeah, great book, great read. And the other book that so it was interesting today. I saw finally movement on not Velvet, but one of those books in that sort of realm. I'm going to think of what it is while I'm doing this. But it made me start thinking about, and this is from Icon.
Yeah.
Really, this is not an indie press book per se, because this was a Marvel sort of. They also put out Powers under the Icon, but this was the first series, and to me, this, Brubaker and Sean Phillips are doing noir work like nobody's business. I think I have all of both volumes 1 and 2, which were put out from Icon initially, but this is sort of a true grit crime story. And whenever I saw this on the cover, I was always picturing like Ewan McGregor, right? That looks like Ewan McGregor should be doing that. And then he did that other sort of role where he played twins, and I'm like, Oh, wait a minute. So those are 3 books right now. And Andy, you may be right. They may be print on demand. But I've just been wondering why people aren't going directly to them, and I'm starting to see sales on eBay. But maybe it's just because that Sarah book, some people can't get it.
Ed Brubaker got that exclusive deal. Remember, he got the TV film deal. And I'm a big Brubaker fan. The one that you didn't talk about, baby. Yeah. I'm so excited about this one. Shame on me for not grabbing them. There's cool like later printings. I just had this because I just paid for it and grabbed it. Had it sent simply so that I could frame it because I love it. I think Fatale checks all the boxes because it does PCH, noir, good girl, and it is a great story.
And all those, like I said, all those sort of Sean Phillips and Brubaker sort of work.
Yeah, Criminal was awesome.
Yeah, and those you could picture that, like that's an FX series waiting to happen, right? If it's not in a streaming, let's go FX. So you're up next, Nico. What do you got for us?
Alrighty. Well, I want to talk about my DC picks, right?
Wait, hold on one second, Nico. And Dan, I think that's because we haven't seen those books really. It's funny, they're sitting there, but has anyone taken them? In fact, I saw the other day some sort of like a year ago Criminal get optioned, but then it turned out to have nothing to do with the Criminal comic book. So that's why I think those books haven't done well. Once those books take out, they're so intricately written. The characterization is so great. You're going to have people seeking those out. So that's the time. That's why we're highlighting those books now. Let's grab those books.
Yeah. Now's the time for Brubaker, man. And I think he's going to get a lot of attention from the Falcon Winter Soldier series. I think people are going to go back, take a look at that. You can't tell me that they're not going to do a little flashback from some of the old footage. People are going to start paying attention to that run where he introduced the Winter Soldier. Hollywood pays attention to Hollywood. And, it's just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I digress.
And in this day and age, we're going to see a lot more probably old footage incorporated in, right? The more old footage, they could probably record, like almost like I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a Woody Allen movie, What's Up, Tiger Lily, where he takes a whole movie and he redubbed it with all just his own, with America. It's very funny. All right, I'm going to go on.
So my DC picks, right? I think it is smart to go and look for these. They used to be really, really stinking popular, right? Like these kinds of books, the Zatanna covers. I'd go back and look at her individual series, those N number runs. People just were real hot and bothered about them for a long time, and then they fell off, and now you can get them cheap. The Catwoman covers are peculiarly low, and I think keep an eye out for them. Similarly, I'm excited about the forthcoming Batman movie. I like that whole Capullo run. While the 1 in 200 ratio variant of #1 is probably not something you're going to ever find for a real steal, you can still find things like a 5th print. Right. And, it's just kind of like, how can I sort of predict what books are going to pop down the pipe with DC on HBO? My pick for like the Zatanna book, other than the first appearance, she's not on the cover, but it's obviously the major Silver Age key, is this one, DC Superstars of Magic. It's a giant size book, black, tough in high grade, and I think you can still find them reasonably priced for the short term. When there was a lot of attention on Zatanna a while ago, people were starting to gravitate towards that book. They thought that Zatanna was going to get her own individual series, and people were paying a lot of attention to it. You saw like the $2,000 9.8. Now that we've heard that J.J. Abrams is going to do the Justice League Dark series, that's the one to pick. I think she'll be a standout character. If I was going to make individual TV series off of that, I'd do John Constantine, Zatanna.
Yeah. So let's talk about. So it's funny you bring that up because one thing I've brought up before, if people watch my solo show, is I'm really interested in where they'll go with this Justice League Dark, because people are jumping at those issues. Believe me, I have tons of those new 52 issues that I was like, let's sell that first print, let's sell that red cover second print. I didn't really get into the Swamp Thing stuff too much because it was a little too like all over the place for me. But I think Justice League Dark 1 made sense. But as I'm looking where DC is sort of set up, I've gone back. Gone forward, and I've looked a lot at the most recent series, right? And I've looked at what James Tynion has done, and James Tynion's a pretty fantastic writer. I'm going to show one of his other books in a minute. And here's maybe you can see the color better there, so you see sort of side by side. So this book has been a really successful for me, probably the most successful of all the Justice League books on the relaunch. And what I think is interesting is that they put Wonder Woman front and center. And so we know that Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out next. Wouldn't it be interesting if Wonder Woman's third movie became sort of a Justice League Dark-centric movie? That way you take an established character, you take someone who's she doesn't even have to be fully involved. She could be involved in the formation of it. She could get it created. But I could see them definitely, and this has the lineup of sort of Swamp Thing, as you said. It has Zatanna. It also adds Man-Bat into the equation. It adds the Detective Chimp as well. And why I think that run is interesting is because throughout that run you had issue 2 and you had issue 3. So you had an issue. You had this sort of the upside down man, right? And this is part of this contingency of dark magic creatures, the other kind, I think they're called. And that was sort of a big part of this early Justice League run. And then all of a sudden they ran into this Witching Hour part, and the Witching Hour crossed over into Wonder Woman, had some beautiful covers, as you can sort of see here. This was a later one. I've talked about the Cersei character being sort of the driving force, who the modern version showed up in Wonder Woman 20. This was Cersei's been around for a while, but this was a version that's sort of been updated for now, and she's on the cover here. And then we had these gorgeous sort of Federici covers. I know they're so dark, so they may not pop up that well for the Witching Hour. And this was all about sort of Wonder Woman and her power with magic and getting involved. And there was a Frizon cover, and there were these foil covers, and then another Frizon cover. I also spoke about that Dr. Fate. But I think what's interesting is they could go either route with that Justice League Dark. And for me, the Justice League Dark that happened back for New 52 is a great lineup, and it has some interesting characters. We may see sort of a blending, right? Like they're going to pick and choose what they want to do. I was excited because Doug Liman, who did the movie Go, and he did The Bourne Identity, the first one, he was initially connected to that Justice League Dark. So let's see where they, I think the director is going to have a lot to do with it. We saw the director who jumped off of Doctor Strange when Sam Raimi came in. Wouldn't it be interesting if he pulled like a James Gunn type thing and slid over, right? Because he had the horror background as well. So that jumped me. You sort of jump started my DC 3 books to look at. So that was one, Nico. Second one, which I was gonna talk a little bit about. I was gonna talk about Ex Machina, right? Because I saw this was Wildstorm DC. I
almost pulled it out.
I have so many Wildstorm books, so Nico, that I think we need to do a Wildstorm special, because between planetary global frequency stuff. So I'm not even going to talk about that book, but I like to do it. Then I started saying, oh, maybe I should show Doomsday Clock, because that's about to come into play, but I don't think we know enough yet on that. So that's not my book. I like to get extra books, and I cheat in a way. I spoke a little bit about that Far Sector, that Green Lantern book, which I know our old pal Jimmy loved, right? He's spoken all about this. And this was N.K. Jemisin.
I thought it was like a graphic novel.
No, so this has been a regular book coming out.
Right, but I thought there was like some sort of children's graphic novel that he was excited about.
So they have DC's doing that whole line as well. But this was the updated version of Green Lantern by N.K. Jemisin, sci-fi author, and Jamal Campbell on art. And she just got a rave, and I think I brought it up that Warren Ellis said N.K. Jemisin was the most natural comic writer he'd ever seen. So that's right there. And then I said, oh, I know we have Event Leviathan, the Manhunter coming out. So I brought up that Manhunter one again with Kate Spencer. Buy these, because they're developing her to be a bigger character. She'd make a perfect sort of like TV film type person for what looks like they're building up the Manhunter myth a little bit more than they've done with Green Lantern. But the book I decided on was actually, I think, Sideways, right? So there's the annual there, and there's
can you go in full screen?
Yeah. So Sideways came out of that metal series. They had a few of the characters that were super popular. Of course, like the Batman Who Laughs. The villain ended up being the biggest book coming out of that series. And then you had some that sort of drifted in and out, and basically they all ended up getting canceled. But Sideways has shown up again in the Young Justice book. Really interesting character, dimensional jumper. In terms of personality, a little bit like Peter Parker, Miles Morales blend in there. But this character has ended up being kind of important because we saw, and I know this was, if you watch Jim's comics, I'd seen him talk about this, and I brought this up as well. This Tempest Fugis character is the character that's all did these what if stories for the dark multiverse. There you go, Mel. I'll hold it all on one side for you. So he's been sort of like a Watcher type character that has appeared, has a lot to do with what happened just recently in that Flash Forward series with Wally West as well. So I would be grabbing these Sideways books. And then in the annual, we actually had the Superman who's now in Young Justice, Connor, not Connor, the one from the New 52 actually popped up. So we see that he can pop up through different sort of different multiverses. I think this could end up being an important character, and Tempest, the Tempest Fuginaut, or I think that's his name, Tempest Fuginaut character might end up being important as well down the line. So that's my second book. And the third and what I feel most important book, I'm not going to, I was going to do this, but I thought it would be torture, Nico. I was going to take you on I was going to do the multiversity thing tonight, but I'm not going to do multiversity or this morning. I decided instead to focus on this book, the JSA. And the reason I'm focusing on this JSA in particular, this was the sort of bringing the JSA back into the modern times. This is James Robinson, Goyer, Steve Sadowski, beautiful artwork. And you can sort of see the lineup here from, I guess, your left to my right is Wildcat, Sandman, Stargirl, who we know that show is about to come out, and I've heard some pretty good things on it. I heard it's like younger skewing WB type stuff going on. Jack Knight, Starman, Jay Garrick Flash, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, Black Canary, Adam, Hawkgirl, and then this sort of Our Man, which is a robot version, which is a whole convoluted history. But I love this JSA series, and I haven't shown on here before, but I know I've shown on my solo thing. If you don't, so when that JSA series ran to 81 issues, and it ended up with these, it ended up with a series of 8 issues at the end. They were all of the black cover, right? Alex Ross books, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Spectre, Mr. Terrific, Alan Scott again, Jay Garrick, and then it ended. There's a the Our Man, Thunderbolt, who I spoke about, who just popped up again in Shazam. And then there you have, or actually popped up in Young Justice. No, Young Justice. And then it ended with this Stargirl for 81. This was the last issue of the series. And then they relaunched into Justice Society America, right? So this was the second series. And that's where we had this updated version of the Red Tornado, Ma Hunkel, who was a legacy character, along with everyone sitting around the table. And again, not because you can never have enough Alex Ross. They ran through, they ran through, again, the rest of the Justice Society. And there's that great Ma Hunkel character, Red Tornado, who we heard about, the Wildcat, both the son and the father. And we heard that the son may pop up in Stargirl, Starman, Sandman. There's Adam, who was originally known as Nuclon, Steel, Liberty Bell, Power Girl, who again, talk about underrated and underutilized characters. Maybe they don't know how to introduce her, especially with that outfit. Kingdom Come Superman. Love that cover. And then it ended with the last Alex Ross sort of solo cover was the Black Adam, and they went into the whole Black Adam Faces of Evil sort of run of Origins and Omens, which again could be a great books to look at as you go down the line. So those JSA Justice Society issues, I pull those out of bins all the time. I grab whole stacks. Those black covers, I mean, my goal is to pull a 9.8 of all those beautiful Black Ross covers and just like sort of, here you go. Like what do we got? Because I have like 5, 6 of each of those covers. But
Nice.
Stargirl, they're developing the younger characters, and I think what's interesting there in terms of that is I have this also another the All-Star Squadron, right? So this introduced the sort of Infinity Incorporated, or at least a couple of characters, Nuclon here, who became like sort of that Atom character, and then Obsidian, who was related to Alan Scott, and then and Jade and a few others were around already. But this was at Infinity Incorporated from All-Star Squadron, which was like JSA Junior almost. And it looks to me that that's sort of the route that they're taking with the upcoming Stargirl series. And again, everyone knows that the issue to have for that is there's Stars and Stripes #1, but also that JSA Stars is where she first takes on the Stargirl persona. And this is a beautiful, actually 6-issue, I think, series, or maybe 8-issue of the JSA All-Stars, each with a John Cassidy cover. All right, so that was a long one, Nico, but I think we can get down the trail.
All right, so I think now is the time to go and look for Suicide Squad books. I think James Gunn is a safe bet, and I'm not real sure about Vigilante #1. We've heard that that's going to be Idris Elba. We'd heard before that it was going to be Bronze Tiger. I've not had real solid confirmation of that. I mean, if you're pulling them out of dollar bins, take a stack. But I wouldn't necessarily think about trying to, put a best offer or participate in a live auction bid on, like a 9/8 of that book until we have solid confirmation. The ones that I do think we have solid confirmation of that I think are more interesting. And again, like, I hope that they don't do what they did with Suicide Squad 1, which is kill half the team. From the footage that we've seen so far, I don't suspect that they're going to do that. And I do suspect that we're going to start to see some of these characters emerge in little snippets. We've at least seen the breadcrumbs that we're going to start to see them soon. So I like both Fighting 540, which is the first Peacemaker, right?
Which we just do a series, the Jeff Lemire series, which is sort of buried in the Inferior 5 update by Keith Giffen. So they sort of buried that feature in the back, but the Peacemaker coming back was, I think that's big.
Yeah, and then I love the first appearance of the Polka Dot Man.
Polka Dot Man. So that's a great book to have, and it's great to show because it's Polka Dot Man, but is that something that you would recommend people purchasing, Nico? And at what,
not at the market price, right? I wouldn't recommend anybody pay market really for anything, but particularly not these books. But these are the kinds of books that I think in this market nobody's paying attention to. You might be stick it on a saved search. Beat me to it, and kudos to you if you do. These are the books when, the shops reopen that you can go back and pull out and be like, really? Do you really want this amount? How about I give you half? Yeah, sure. Fine, kid, take it. Walk away with a smile on your face, send it to CGC, and wait for the trailer and sell it and make some cash. If you are, looking for kind of a longer term play, the one that I like, that I think has real potential for the future out of the DC universe, is your buddy Static. I like the variant. I like the last issue, and I think that's a whole sort of like the Milestone series, something that's ripe for development on HBO Max. So I think now's the time where, again, who's paying attention to Milestone books? Nobody. Well, I know you are, Gary.
That's one of my, because you hear every year or every year and a half, you hear sort of whisperings that the whole Dwayne McDuffie thing has been settled. For those who don't know, there was a lawsuit holding things up. They had a whole plan to be relaunched. Dennis Cowan, who I, by the way, heard was sick recently, so I hope he's doing okay. Dennis Cowan, one of the great creators, working along with probably, they talk a little bit about maybe Priest being involved with that, who's Christopher Priest, one of my all-time favorite writers, so underrated. but lawsuits have held that up, and now we hear there may be movement on that. I also love that Platinum Hardware, which is to me is the first true appearance of Milestone Universe, and get the Platinum Edition if you can on that. You can still find that. Like buy those books cheap on the cheap now. Speaking of buying books on the cheap, I tried to find 3 IDW books, Nico. I had a hard time, so I squeezed this in because at the end of the run, it did go IDW, but I speak again and again about this character, and Disney Plus just I'm going to keep us both in because I think your reaction shots are important too always. Disney Plus just put The Rocketeer back on movie airwaves, and families all over are falling in love with this movie. They've never seen it. It's perfect for that age group. They talked about this updated version with a young African American girl getting the rocket helmet that got scrapped or
what happened to that shit? What the hell? I mean,
yeah. So I think Disney knows they have something here that's bigger. Everybody knows, like, the big one is the Star Slayer first appearance Rocketeer, and the reason why that's great is because it does have that beautiful, right, the Dave Stevens Rocketeer back cover. I love to display it that way. But that's Star Slayer 2, and as you can see, it says origin, first full appearance of the Rocketeer by Dave Stevens, pinup by Dave Stevens on the back cover. This is not signed, unfortunately, by Dave Stevens. It was signed by the interior artist Mike Grell, but that's fine. I'll take what I can get. And then, you know, there have been a lot of Rocketeer books on and back and forth, but the books that people really like the Pacific Presents ones, you find these are dollar books, guys. These are constantly. I look for great copies of these, and these are Dave Stevens covers in dollar bins.
That's
right?
adorably fucking gorgeous. I love it.
So then it went from Pacific, then it went over to Comico, who some of you may recall over the years. Another great Dave Stevens cover. This is
Strong
Dave Stevens,
like bull.
Stevens and Dorman together, doing almost
That's
like
dude, that's just sick right there. Yeah.
Yep. Another one. This is all the final act from the Rocketeer Adventure Magazine 1 to 3. And then it jumped over to IDW. And again, they started giving us some really cool Rocketeer adventures, some reprint stuff. Then, of course, you know, we spoke about Betty Page earlier. That's when I was going to try to make that transition. Them standing up on the roof together.
Love the skirt.
Yep. Very Monroe-esque. And then the last cover. So Rocketeer, one of those properties. So that was one IDW book. Another book that people may recall who followed me way back on CBSI, and I heard some whisperings of a possible movement on Amber Blake. And Amber Blake was a sort of a noir-esque detective series. This book really jumped, not because of the content per se, but because of the Catherine Naudet covers. I know Mel got on this back in the day. I grabbed a few of these copies. I sold them. I bought in at $18, and I think I sold at $100 and $120 on 2 of them. And then I kept the best copies just sort of back to back. I love putting my magazines back to back. Helps keep those spines sweet. It's just a great Catherine Naudet cover. Very underordered book. It was a French oversized translation, so you know already you're looking and really great Butch Guicci art on here, or Gucci, but I think it's Guicci. So that was my other IDW. I could only find 2 of those IDW books, but I think those are great. And yes, Andy,
damn,
Rocketeer. What a great sort of that movie. One of the most underrated movies in my mind. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Rocketeer. What a great 1-2 combo, especially if you have kids. All right. Anything else?
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. So I think that when you're digging through those long boxes, you got to keep an eye out for Amazing Heroes previews, right? For those who are unfamiliar, there's cool stuff like Todd McFarlane art with Cap and Spidey and the Human Torch and Wolverine. Look at that. It reminds you of that Vigilante 1 with the newsprint. I mean, just a great find. I'd look at all of these covers. You got to look at the backs of them sometimes too. Just amazing art. Think about those books. They are super tough in grade because they're about that thick. And, you know, you end up with like staple pops and, you know, geez, wheeze. But I love them. The other one that I like is wrestling comics. So if you're like me and you grew up watching, you know, the Von Erichs and AWA and, you know, you know the intricacies of Cactus Jack and, far before he became popular with Mankind. You'll remember when he was on the Jim Crockett Network and WCW. This is Marvel Comics WCW number 6. But there's like Sting and Lex Luger, and Mankind is of course who's nearest and dearest to my heart. But I like them all. Then for me, my long-term play, because they're $1 a piece, and I won't stop until I have every copy, is Secret Wars 2 number 3. It's the first appearance of the Beyonder in human form. Black cover. It just makes sense. You can get 9/8 for like $50 at one point in time. I don't know that you can do that anymore. Somebody's gonna have to look on eBay. But it's clear to me that the long-term trajectory of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Secret Wars. Now, I don't know if they're going to do an amalgam of the Doom World, Battle World, or the original Secret Wars. That's what my gut tells me. But all it's going to take is, I don't know. Who could they use? I'm trying to think here. Just some A-list, like Zac Efron or some A-list celebrity as the Beyonder, and it's lights out. This book will skyrocket. Of course, look for the newsstands if you can, but certainly grab high grades and 9/8. I think you can sell sets of Secret Wars 1 and 2 easy as well. I think people are starting to pick up on that. You've seen some action on Secret Wars 1 and obviously Secret Wars number 8 from the first series. It has always been a big book, but this is the one that nobody seems to talk about or care about that I think has a lot of long-term potential.
That's an awesome book, and Nico, I'm taking all these notes for our future shows like Secret Wars, the Multiversity, Wildstorm. We got a ton of guys. We're gonna keep you going right up until the summer here with all this content. And I was going to show a couple other books on that side. I just wanted to show really quickly. You triggered me with that wrestling book because a few years ago, I actually I got this book and I'm like, oh, this looks like a 9.8, and it came back as a 9.2, even though it's not a great book. But look, you remember this one, the CM Punk WW. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a 9.8. I'll sell it to some wrestling things.
Dude, I sued CM Punk once, and Dave Bautista, and I forget who the third person was. They were in a tribe, like I don't know what the hell it's called. It's like where there's like 3-on-3.
Okay.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Not a tag team match, but like a whatever. But anyway, the point is, there was a lawsuit that arose out of that.
That's interesting.
And I always felt like such a jerk. I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. I really but
the last time I followed wrestling, Superfly Snooker was coming off the top ropes. Was the last time I actually followed wrestling. So that shows how dated I am in my wrestling knowledge. But you got me thinking a minute when you talked about Secret Wars, and it got me thinking about. So this, I want to show you. This is the biggest garbage comic in my collection. Okay, this is a garbage comic. Like I keep this comic so far away with the stench of this comic, but it has hit some interest recently again. So Ultimatum, right?
Oh Lord, I don't even have any of this.
So I didn't think I had them either, but I have 2 huge Ultimate boxes I've been going through and pulling all the sort of books out that I think may come into play down the line, because as people know, in Spider-Man 2 issue 6, that's when the Ultimate Universe opened back up again. That's when we had Ultimatum, which is other Miles Morales pop over. That's when we had some other characters shift over into our universe, and so that Ultimate Universe was created again. That does tie into Hickman at the end of Secret Wars, having the Fantastic Foundation go through and reseed these universes now, right? So we spoke about previously how the Maker is trying to open up the dimensions. He figured out the Venom from his Ultimate Universe could pop over to our universe. Going down the rabbit hole here. So we've seen that there's Ultimatum news out, and this is all coming off unfounded rumors because of the underground earthquakes. And I think we just saw actually somebody that's already refuted, because somebody brought up the underground earthquakes, who was a writer on the Avengers Endgame movie when they did that. And they brought up, was it setting up Namor? And they said, well, as a screenwriter, you always want to plant seeds that ultimately may germinate, right? So people have thought maybe that was a reference to Atlantis and Wakanda getting into a battle. That's how you bring Atlantis and Namor in. But what we've seen now is that people are going toward Ultimatum. And why this book really just, like, one, it turns my stomach. One, because it's Jeff Loeb, who is just not a top-notch sort of writer. He's like the lowest common denominator. There's a scene in here where, if I can find it, I think it's an issue 1, or maybe it's not an issue 1. Well, where the Blob is actually like cannibalizing the Wasp in this book, right? So like what ends up happening in this series is ultimately most of the Ultimate Universe ends up getting killed off. They sort of cull everything out. They reboot it. Jeff Loeb ended up doing his version of the Ultimates, which built off the phenomenal Mark Millar, Brian Hitch version, which was this widescreen CinemaScope stuff that he did. They had this Ultimatum series, which ended ultimately him doing a new Ultimates book, and from that Ultimates book, it sprang off into, and again, if you remember, this was the original Ultimates book, right? This was the Hitch, the like gorgeous wide range stuff. Then they did the Ultimates 2, which followed up pretty well. Then Jeff Loeb took over. I don't have that book in my collection, but the book that I think is interesting is when Hickman took that Ultimates run over. He started to use, he gave Ultimate Thor sort of a new origin in that book as well. He did an Ultimate Thor series, which I think I have in a minute. But this Ultimate series essentially built up the core audience again, right, of the Ultimates. Nick Fury with the eye patch, because that is the ultimate Nick Fury, right, running through here. They had this was the Jamie Braddock, Captain Britain, I think they had in here. They had the Falcon, etc. But why I think this Hickman's here, and there's the Ultimate Thor book. There was that JSC variant for that. Bless you, with Valkyrie and Amora the Enchantress on there. And then he even did he did like an Ultimate Hawkeye. So Hickman had sort of a blueprint for this this Ultimate Universe. And we spoke about the Al Ewing issues previously. I would be buying Ultimates from I would buy the Ultimates from Al Ewing. I'd buy the Ultimates from Hickman. I would be buying these books up because while they may not go back to the Avengers, that Ultimates is something they're going to be using and expanding out. There's something bigger happening within the Ultimate Universe right now. We don't know for sure, but those early Hickman books, like right now, he's the shit at Marvel, right? He and Ewing and Cates and Aaron, they're like the writers' boys club over here. So they're going to take a lot of these things and they're pulling from a lot of things. And I always tell you, story-based spec is stuff that I think really you can latch onto, put them away. And if worse comes to worse, if you're a comic fan, if you're watching us and hopefully you're not just here for the money, you're reading these books. And that Hickman run is really phenomenal. He brought back that sort of scope of what they did. But that you just reminded me bringing up Secret Wars, because that Secret Wars Hickman series and that Ultimate series, I think both may come into play eventually. And I think Secret Wars, not the one you showed, but the one that came further down the line, will lay some seeds down the Marvel Universe with that Battle World. I was even thinking of the Champions, right? Like, isn't right. Champions? Yeah, absolutely.
And see, here's kind of what I think. We saw what they did with the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, obviously, they retold Starlin's story, but they took pieces from the updated Hickman version and kind of sprinkled them throughout. And I sort of anticipate that they'll do the same thing, right? I mean, and it's not as if Marvel's looking to like wrap everything up in a cute little bow in 5 minutes. I mean, they're looking to tell a longer narrative. They need a big bad. The big bad of Secret Wars is really Doctor Doom, but you need to make him sort of like a cosmic entity. So you do it with the Beyonder and have him take the power from the Beyonder. And you just kind of make that like a, 3-movie, 9-movie, sprinkle here, there, everything arc like they did with Endgame. I'll probably be 60 by the time that it's over. Yeah. But my life will be complete. They will tell the story of my childhood on the big screen.
And that makes so much sense, because just the way and then Al Ewing used a lot of that. They had the Molecule Man, right? He played a big part in Secret Wars, and then he played a big part as they started into Secret Wars with Hickman. So all of these sort of connective tissues, I could see them connecting those Secret Wars together somehow, right? Like both.
Yeah, I think they have to, and I think, and that's why I like Hickman's X-Men run, is because you can run it as a parallel story. It's still just this profound story, huge in scope, but it operates in all these different sort of timelines. You're doing the Secret Wars over here, the X-Men stuff over here. You can have sort of like the ground level stories, too. That's sort of how I see it. And I may be wrong, but that's sort of how I see like the next 10, 20 years of film shaking out. I'm excited.
Yeah, and jumping like I said, and jumping back and forth like we talked between small and big screen, you can play around with that format a little as well. Nico, anything else you want to show up over there? You got anything?
Yeah, I got some more. I got some more nonsense over here. So everybody knows I'm a homer for Chew, right? Like I am. I love.
You see the new series that's not Chew. You see the new Not Chew series that he has out now, following like a female who is in that world. I'll find it. While you're looking, I'll find it for you.
Oh, good. Okay. It's forthcoming.
Yeah, I think issue 1 came out, I believe, already. I think it's called CHU. I think, I believe. Show yours books, and then I'll find this.
All right. Well, anyway, I love that. I think it's a win, and they've got like cool stuff. So I liked the glow in the dark cover. Right? Does everybody remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they did the X-Files, sort of like Mulder Scully bit there on the cover. Yeah, for the win. I liked the Pulp Fiction homage. There's a Reservoir Dogs one that I couldn't find. That's the second print. But again, nobody cares, but I care. And I think if they ever make a Chew TV show, other people will care. And then the one that I think you can find that you can't get cheap, it's much like Chew #1. You can't get them cheap. But you can get this one a hell of a lot cheaper than you can get Chew #1 is Cowboy Ninja Viking. We've seen it go. It's going to get made. Chris Pratt's going to be in it. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. I don't care if it ever gets made as a television show, as long as you take the time to read it. It's exceptional. It's like one of my all-time favorite comics. It's hilarious. Riley Rossmo does the art on it. And it's like it's psychiatric in all of the best ways. I mean, he's just doing stuff up and down and all around on the panels. And, it tells the story about a CIA agent who has become well, I don't want to tell too much about it, but the point is, it's so fun and it's so enjoyable. And if you haven't read it, please take the time to pull it up on Comixology on your iPad or whatever. I think you'll love it too. And that's a book that you can find in those magazine size boxes because a lot of retailers just don't know that people still pay, I don't know, $200, $300, $400 for 9/6, 9/8. But because I've never paid top dollar for my copies. Bought them after I got back into comics a year and a half ago, and you can do the same thing I'm doing. So no, I wouldn't encourage you to run out and pay market price for one on eBay, but keep your eyes peeled for it because it's a magazine size book that you can find for cheap because somebody brought in a collection, sold it to a store, and they didn't really bother to process it and just threw $10 each on every issue out of that run.
And Nico, what you say, I take two things away from that. One, we both continue to emphasize these magazine-sized books, whether it be Epic Illustrated books, what you're showing, what I showed over there. By the way, I heard from the Pat that it's not out yet, but there's the cover. You can see it's very.
It's the sister. They're doing something about his sister.
That's who it may be. Yeah, she may. I was trying to think if they're connected, but yeah, probably right because that's his name. I only, I had the first 5 issues of that. I sold the first issue, and then I had the other 4 sitting around. But and I actually had the hardcover where I actually met Layman. He's an interesting guy.
I love it, man. It's one of my all-time favorites. But everybody's got a book like that, so
Yeah, talking about magazine style books, just two fun books that I saw because I was really looking for some dark horse that I haven't spoken about, and I've spoken a lot about like dark horse on my other solo show. But I pulled out this. You remember this book back in the day? Remember when they had
Absolutely.
Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot, and then of course everyone remembers, right? Hard Boiled. Remember these were two. This was Frank Miller and Jeff Darrow, who's an amazing sort of artist. If you've never seen these were huge. This one's actually really oversized. Like you see my hand, right? I can't even get my hand over. But these are the kind of books that, again, we're seeing them go back to properties, right? We're seeing Sin City be developed again down the line. We're seeing them work on Dark Horse. Just got this deal set up, and I think these are Frank Miller owned properties along with Jeff Darrow. But again, series that sort of, these are like, these books sit around in magazines. Like, this is magazine size, this is over magazine size. So just finding these books like in really nice condition. And again, these are not expensive books. I think maybe like $8-10. Oh, Chew is okay. So Chew gets it from who she's eating with. Like, she's a food empath or something. Yeah, I forgot the exact thing. The other Dark Horse book I've spoken about before. Mark Millar's stuff is coming out. That Chosen. Why this is really interesting is because they did change the title once it got sort of
American Jesus,
and then as the American Jesus, right? That started coming out again recently. This is going to come out. These are the books you should definitely be looking for.
The Baphomet.
Yeah, and then I have obviously my next spoiler alert. Oh, and that obviously, yeah, this is the Chosen one. That's the one you're looking for with the Frankie Says Relax cover. Really tough. Again, black covers down the line. I brought this book up on my horror show, and to me, I would be grabbing as many of these as I could. One Thing from Another World. If you've never seen the original movie, The Thing, the John Carpenter film, probably I'm a big John Carpenter fan. Escape from New York, not so much The Fog, some other things that he's done down the line. Thing from Another World is the comic sort of The Thing movie, and this is a tough book to find. They are relaunching The Thing in a new form, so they're going to be following up on this. It's all about people trapped in an Antarctic base where they encounter something that may not be what they think it is. Really great body horror. I love the covers. Again, tough book to find. I would definitely be seeking this out, as that would be my third Dark Horse book to be keeping a lookout over there. So that's Dark Horse in a nutshell. I only have two categories left on my side, Nico, over here.
Oh, I'm done. All I've got left is the books that I'm gonna send to CGC. I told you I pulled them out just to kind of give our viewers sort of like an idea of what I do when I submit books, what kind of books I'm submitting, and why I sub them.
So why don't you hold those? Why don't you hold those for the end? I'll do a really quick speed round as I'm known to do. So my boom.
Gary.
So I did a boom special already. It was really tough for me not to go back again to go to Abbott or to go to the books that I tend to go back to, are Giant Days. So both those books, Abbott and Giant Days, grab them. I saw Nick just put up Abbott on Key Collector, so maybe people will be seeking that out more. But I've spoken about these before, and I think these Buffy covers of the other Slayers, and again, I've double bagged these. So you have France 1820. You have the
when did that TV show start?
So there is, I don't think there is a new Buffy show. So what's happening is there is this the Chosen One mini is on the way out. This is the Japan 16th century. There's Miami. And the Chosen One is going to follow sort of the first Slayer. It's a Slayer we've met already. Chances are they're going to end up being someone we met on one of these covers. This is from Iceland. This is the one from China. And this is the one from Philippines. So they had all of these different Slayers over the years. I get the feeling that you cannot, like, they did such a great job of relaunching Buffy with Joss Whedon from a movie that was sort of a joke into a series that was really well received. You're never going to be able to recreate that sort of, that chemistry, that magic. Boom has done a really nice job of sort of layering out the mythology a lot. They've been dropping these special issues. We hear something big is going to be happening in Buffy. I want to say Buffy 16. I just read a big article on that. There are a lot of variant covers for that. They're supposed to drop a last page reveal. There are people, and again, I always say, people who follow the property of Buffy outside the comic world and in the comic world. And a lot of times there's that crossover. We're going to see some different Slayers throughout times. Maybe that's the route they go in terms of introducing a show. Why not? If you can go through history and show these Slayers throughout history, that would be a great premise for me. The other Boom books that I just really wanted to highlight quickly, I spoke about James Tynion earlier. I still think that The Woods is probably the #1 property that I've been looking at in terms of, it's a high school that essentially gets transported to a moon off a distant planet, and they end up there and how this sort of group survives. It's a really easy one locale in a show set up somewhere. You have a setup cast. You have antagonist on the outside. James Tynion knows how to write for Hollywood as well. So I'd grab The Woods. And finally, a property that I've spoken about a lot, and I just love this cover in general, but you can never forget those kids books from Boom. I spoke about Kaboom, and I don't think I showed both of them last time, but the Mecha.U this is tailor-made for an animated series. A boy and his robot. You know, we've seen the Iron Giant. I also showed that other Rusty and the Robot series. But Mecha.U from Greg Pak, who loves to develop things for Hollywood. He's a creator of Agents of Atlas. Has been trying to get that developed. I know this is something that's been pushed out in beautiful art from Takeshi Miyazawa, who, if you followed a lot of his work, I believe Miyazawa did I Kill Giants, but maybe I'm wrong on that with Joe Kelly. I don't know if he did the art on that or not. But those are the 3 Boom books that I have a whole Boom category as well. Talking about Boom, is there any chance Firefly Serenity series gets rebooted? I don't think they're going to do anything with that property. I think that property is a sore point in the sort of the Fox sort of the feather on the cap. I think they're expecting big sort of Buffy type things, and they're not into cult audiences per se. But I think you'll definitely see, like, keep following the comic. It's sort of like Buffy's been around from Dark Horse, and now it's over in Boom. It may have a second life. Those are the books you want to sort of buy now. Yeah, the Firefly run has great covers in there as well, and a lot of nice variants. And the last thing, and then I'm going to let Nico show his books. I just want to jump through 3 Image books really quickly. And they're nothing that's going to be brand new, but they're books that are sort of slowed down a little. So one, Crowded. Crowded is coming, and
nobody cared about that book. It was so hot when it came out, and it was good.
Yeah, and again, I grabbed all the autographed copies off today. And what was cool about those was they also had on the reverse side, they had this little really cool book, Shanghai Red, as well. And these were all signed on the backside. And there's a gorgeous cover on the backside of this. So these were available really cheap. I think I got them $8 a pop, maybe. So I grabbed a stack of those. But that involves the Rebel Wilson. She's involved in producing of that. Has a huge, I can't tell you the online community that supports Crowded. Like, I sort of try to follow what's on the public zeitgeist of
really good.
Radar. And
I love that book.
And Crowded, this is going to be one of those books. Again, it hyped up, it went up. Don't buy now. You know, don't buy then. Buy now when it's back off the radar, when everyone's going after this. And the other book that was very similar to that, and I think I bought all of the books off the Top Cow website, and again, Image. Port of Earth. And Port of Earth, if you guys haven't read it, and there's 2 covers, there's sort of, let me go big again. And this came from Zach Kaplan and a great, oh, sorry. I don't know why that book got on there. Hold on. It's because sometimes you just have too many books. So both Port of Earth covers. I love the alien cover, but it has a regular cover as well. This sort of tells a story of an intergalactic sort of station, sort of down and dirty. If you've watched The Expanse, it could have that sort of feel to it with a little bit of Battlestar Galactica thrown in. I bought tons of copies of these. Again, not at no more than $4 or $3.50 a copy. I will sit on those. That's an option property already. I actually reached out to Zach Kaplan and just said, is there anything going on with that? I haven't heard back from him yet because I was just prepping for this. And then the final one, which has not been optioned, and I know people think it has, and I've spoken about it again and again. I would continue to buy Die. Like their Die is the series you want right now. This is a 1A, 1B covers. These were cheap 9.8 slabs that I got, guys. These books have these sort of fluctuate up and down again. Remember, when it's off the public radar, that's when you want to start seeking them out. And the covers alone, like they've done such an amazing job on those on the variant covers. As we look down the line, I've showed a lot of these on in the past. Peach Momoko, of course, who I'm not a hugest fan of. But they get some awesome people on those V covers. I have a whole stack of those over there. For those who don't know, Die is essentially a story about this group of kids who came together to do a D&D type game. They got sucked into the universe. All of them came out except for one person, and now years later, the one person who got left there sort of brings them back into the situation. They all have different sort of, one's like a grief knight who feeds off the grief of others. So it's sort of them juggling their adult screwed up lives with now trying to coexist with what's going on in this other Dungeons and Dragon world. Highly recommended if you haven't read it. Like, read those books, guys. Like, read books, and if you have, you know what you like, chances are other people will like those books as well. So those are all of my my TriSPECta books out there, Nico. Why don't you bring us back around the table and show us what's going to CGC next?
Yeah, so I mean, I knew when we talked and after we talked that I didn't really have any idea what the fuck you were doing or wanted me to do. So I was like, what can be my backup plan? Well, I'll just grab a stack of books that are on their way to CGC, and at least no matter how bad I missed the mark on what Gary suggested that I do, at least I'll have this to fall back on. And maybe it will be mildly helpful to other people to kind of see how someone else sort of does encapsulation. So this is the next group of books that's going out to CGC. 3 copies of Beta Ray Bill's first appearance. They're all 9/8 contenders. I don't really mess with that book unless I think they're 9/8 contenders. Canto 1, 9/8 contender. Out the door. I don't plan on selling this when it comes back, right? Or necessarily any of these books, but a lot of these are kind of like looking to the future. So this was the I forget it was like a retailer incentive, but it was like a convention variant, right? The Resident Evil 1, this one I want ready. It's a 9/8 contender. I want it ready when the TV show hits Netflix because I want it to be out the door for top dollar. I'm sending one of the RRPs. I've got a bunch of these, but this was the only one that was a 9/8 contender. Now, books like this, I don't care if they're 9/8 contenders as long as they're really high grade. So it'll go. I've got another even better copy in here. This one will go first Cersei. Again, nice higher grade copy. It's 9/8 or bust for me on these suckers. I think this is potentially a 9/8. Same deal with this one, but at least it's a newsstand. So if I get the 9/6, it's like, I'll be okay with it. I love Chew. I keep trying to sub a 9/8, and we'll see if I can do it this time. As you said, with the dies, I want to have this one. God willing, in 9/8 condition. This was the store variant that took off when the option news happened, so I can flip it. Same deal with East of West. We saw the Amazon deal fall through. If Netflix picks it up, I want to have the 9/8 ready out the door, but not beforehand. These are just always smart for me to slab if I've got them in high grade. I don't know, necessarily that it makes sense to not slab them unless they're 9.2s or below. And I've had really good luck with paying CCS to press them. So that's one I always pay for CCS to press. Subby ones out the door. I think the most overvalued comic of the Silver Age right now. It used to be like the most undervalued. Now it's arguably the most overvalued. I'll still get rid of it. I screwed up on this one. I pray to God I get it back in time before the TV show hits, because I want to be rid of the first appearance of Damian Hellstrom. People can like argue with me about what the right book is. This is the right book for the TV show, as the way that it's being published, but because they're not going to do like Hellstrom with horns, running around with
or
a pitchfork.
How about Satana? We talked about that, right? Nothing like
Anna. Hi, Anna. How you been?
Hey, we'll just call you Anna for sure. They'll mention one point. So do you
like the devil, Satan?
We have a question, Nico. Do you pay for pre-screening at CGC, or do you just roll the dice?
No, I don't pay for pre-screening.
Yeah, I've never paid for pre-screening either. I found that I've gotten pretty good, and I have to say, you know, I can't say for books that I picked up over the years, but books that I buy, the place that I go, they already they know how to put their books out, and I've gotten so many 9.8s. I've never pressed a book in my life that I've actually submitted on my own, and my 9.8, like, you know, you get an eye for it, you know, pretty well, unless the screener is having a long day and tough days. I think I read right now, by the way, for non-CGC subscribe for those who have free CGC memberships, that they're allowing you to send stuff in now. I think there's CGC is doing some sort of deal. So go on the CGC page also. If you have a free membership and not a paid membership, and you want to get some books slabbed, you can do it without the extra.
Ready to hear what CBCS is doing? I need this book in a 9.2 or above, otherwise don't slab it. Okay, cool.
That's
what he said on the podcast last night. And I was just like, well, hot damn.
Yeah, I have two CBCS books. I have a 9.8 Ghost Rider, but I also, my Black Hammer, my San Diego Comic-Con is CBCS, and I've hotly contested whether or not to break and get it CGC. I really don't know, because just the difference in the value and the perceived rate of what it's worth.
Yeah, it's brutal. And it's kind of like, if I'm buying a book for me to keep, I want CBCS. If I'm buying a book to crack press and resubmit, I want CBCS. I mean, it's just like, it's such a strange thing. Anyway, I'll keep rolling. This one I already talked about.
Oh, sorry. I don't have any, Nico. You got off the stream.
So this is like a really high grade copy. Out the door. I might actually, now that I saw it, try to sub that other one too, because it's really nice. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Gone out the door. Same deal. Gone out the door. I like high grade old Spideys they sell. Check out this sucker. Wait.
Yeah, try to lose you, Blair. Yeah,
okay. Hey, how you doing? Very nice. Yeah, so I think I can get a halfway decent grade on it. We'll see how it presses. Again, I'll pay them to press it. I got a guy that presses books for me here locally, but he's in quarantine, blah, blah, blah. Out the door.
How many will you send in all together, Nico, when you send in your books?
I try to do 25 book lots.
Okay.
But again, these will go in different categories, so I would send more. But I want to do enough that it sort of makes sense to pay for shipping, to have them ship them back to me. You know, and I kind of stagger them out so I don't have to pay for it all at once. Like, I get this first wave back, you know, because these are all books I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, maybe not right now, but eventually I'm going to sell them. So, you know, I want it to come back in staggered. So, like, you know, boom, comes in, sell, profits, pay for the next one. I think this is the wrong book, but I'll slab it and sell it.
For some people, it'll be the right book, believe me.
Yeah, right. But again, now we talked about both of these last time. Books I just picked them up raw to slab them, and I'll hold both of those. Like, a lot of these I'll hold, you know, just to try to get them out at the right time, because I don't think it's the exact right time. You know, I want to try to sell books at the tippy top. I try to buy books at the as close to the bottom as I can without missing, because sometimes you just miss them if you wait till they get to the very, very bottom.
But I think it's smart. I think it's smart that what you're not waiting to slab them. You'll have them slabbed, so you have them, and that's a big mistake that people make. They're like, oh, I'm going to wait till this book gets hot, and then no. Find your book now that you have sort of, one, that are already established, or two, that you're like, I want to be first to market with a book that I have a sneaky suspicion about, or I have a feeling about, that no one has a 9.8 sitting around to this book. I think like when I showed that Unleash book with the Gabriel Walt, I'm like, oh, if that book ever gets option, I have the one 9.8 that anybody ever bothered to get slabbed. So again, put those on the side, get those set through. Yes, those eerie books are amazing, Andy, right?
Yeah, I'll keep the Dracula for me. I shouldn't have suggested that. I wouldn't like that one.
Keep some for yourself. Like not every book you have to slab. Like, some books you just want to slab because that's a book that's meaningful to you. But I still endorse highly buying cheap slabs. We always like to give and in our small crowd now, you know me, I like junk bonds, right? And I've been keeping my ear to the Twitter sphere. and I heard information about this My Little Pony Transformers crossover coming. Transformers is crossover with everybody, but there's a My Little Ponies Transformers crossover coming.
All right.
I decided to do a little research. Like I'm not a brony, but and I'm really not even a huge Transformers fan. But
I was never worried that you were a brony.
Yeah, you don't know. Once I slide this bookcase over, and all my all my in mint in case My Little Pony figures are up there. But what we've seen over the years is that these crossovers, like Ghostbusters, Transformers, a lot of these like crossing over properties, they pick up some value. And so I looked and I said, wait a minute, has a Transformers ever crossed over before with My Little Pony? So I did a little research, and number one, I saw there was a great Tom Sciolo G.I. Joe series, and issue 13, the last issue, was this double fold cover. I should probably have found that while I was doing this, right? Now, do you still see me? I'm just curious. So I'm talking. What do you see right now, Nico?
Just you.
Okay, you just see me over there. Oh, that's kind of cool.
I see both of us, actually.
Okay, so that's cool. So because I just want to make sure that this works when I'm off screen. So let's see if I do this. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there was this really cool, and I'll bring this up now. Double page, and I'll go share. Oh,
nice.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to go bigger on this one. Hold on. Let me go big on this. And let's see if this comes up. Okay. No. So anyway, okay, here, open image in new tab. Let's see if this works. Okay. Nope. So anyway, what I was saying was, so there's a G.I. Joe Transformers up here in this right corner. And they had actually, Megatron ends up in this weird world at the end where he's like, where he ends up in the My Little Pony planet. I'm like, okay, that's not really an in-continuity appearance. Then there was a con book that came out in 2016 where it looks like they're crossed over, but it's kids playing. But then I went looking a little deeper, and I saw there was a really cool, and I'm going to get to this screen. Hold on. Boom, 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 and there. So in 2013, they came out. There was, I guess, a BotCon, it was called, and they had this Pinkie Pie cosplay Optimus Prime. It was only given out at the BotCon. It was issue 3 of this My Little Pony micro series. So I went online to look. There were no raw copies, but I saw someone, and again, this was weird. They had 10 slabbed copies for $35 each. So I said, oh, you know what? To me, that's a no-brainer. Like buying first appearances of sort of 2 branded characters when you have a series coming out, to me, that's something that you can double, triple your money on. And so this was a BotCon 2013 version, 9.8 slips for $35. And again, those are those kind of things that I sort of buy, sit around on. You're not going to lose money on that because there are people who are interested in both those properties. And the only thing that happens with these kind of books is they have to get out in the public. People have to know about them, and you have to be smart in how you do that. So again, those are those little sort of, that's what I sort of do. Like now when I have all this free time, I'm like, okay, when did the Transformers and My Little Pony? Like something I never thought I'd be doing in my adult life ever, Nico.
I like that it was a convention exclusive. I mean, some of those Transformers convention exclusives are so freaking rare. They sell for so much money. I mean, there's like that Galaxy Edge Star Wars crazy book, and then those kinds of like super convention variants are just below the kind of like books that you had to buy a car to get this comic book kind of rare.
The sort of like to get this, or like when they give out a few books, like I don't want to reveal on this episode, but there are a couple things that I've been looking for where they gave out like 50 copies or 30 copies of something. In fact, there was one of the books you were showing earlier. There was like a really small window of that out, and I have an auction that I've been sort of hawking and watching. We'll see maybe next week if I grab it and come out.
Nice.
But I think all right. So we experimented a little. We threw out a lot of different. This is sort of our potpourri episode. But maybe what we'll do is in the future we'll talk before we do this, and we'll come out with a TriSPECta category each week, and that'll be like a little corner category that we'll start having these little sort of categories on our show, like segments, I guess they would be called.
All right.
On live video.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get George to listen better.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We have a guest speaker. Yeah, I think we have some possible guests coming on next week. So we'll see. Yeah, but they can only stay on 5 minutes because they can't. How can they get a word in edgewise over here? I want to thank all of our people in the comments who spent Sunday morning with us for an hour and a half. Nico, you want to pop in about anything going on or happening the upcoming week, or?
Well, tomorrow, Monday, I'll be live on Tales from the Flip Side on YouTube. If you haven't gotten a chance to read my article on comicbookinvest.com, I am writing a comic book strategic investment weekend update. I hope you enjoy it. And if somebody is willing to sing, this is the theme to Gary Show, the theme to Gary Show. I really would appreciate you recording that. Gary called me up and asked me if I'd write his theme song.
That's the old It's Gary Shandling's show, which was a classic back in the day.
This is the theme to the Comic DeSPECtive show. Dun, 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 dun.
Maybe we won't get sued. I was going to try the Breakfast Club instrumental music, and it was already copyright matching was an issue. But we have a lawyer. I have a lawyer right over there. So we can help out.
We're almost about to finish. How did you like it so far? This is the theme to the Comic DeSPECtive show.
I love it, but this is my Comic DeSPECtive. I need that just for my solo show. This is a joint venture, Nico. I can't run this one alone. Now I've just gotten to the point of just doing specials. I do want to wish. I don't really have anything to hype. I put my Twitter handle over there. I've been trying to do some fun stuff in terms of pulling out comics that you may not always see, and happy May the 4th be with you. Tomorrow, maybe I'll do a special Star Wars show. We'll see if I'm feeling up to it. If I crack, let's look what those bottles look like. You'll know what my day's like tomorrow by time when we come on next. But I want to thank everybody. Mel, I'm glad you went out and bought that book, dude. Come on, that's money. I guarantee you. 6 months, no, let's say if that book comes out, let's say 3 months from now, I guarantee you triple your money on that book. That's at least $100 book on a $30 buy-in, and that's what it's all about. Have some fun. Otherwise, you have a really great book to display. Until next time, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Nico, always a pleasure. And be safe out there. I don't know where you are, but New York, 70 degrees. We'll take it today. All right.
Woo.